and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap podcast. And I appreciate all of you who watch and listen to our weekly chats. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, your host. And as a career and life coach for women, my vision is to create resources that help women navigate career and life challenges more easily and know they are not alone. With each weekly inspiring conversation, we intend to help women around the world become more confident, resilient, and brave in their careers and indeed in their lives. So if something strikes a chord as you are listening and you want more information, check the show notes below for various ways to connect with my guest and me. So, for working moms in our audience or anyone, in fact, who struggles with work life balance, I invite you to listen carefully to this conversation with Karen Clark Salinas. Her story will likely strike a chord with you, and her lessons are powerful. So, like many women, motherhood, marriage, chronic illness, divorce, and blended families are all a part of Karen's story. She is a national board certified health and wellness coach and the founder of Rebalance Wellbeing. She's on a mission to help overloaded working moms redefine how to work and parent so their goals and dreams don't take a back seat to a crazy busy life. Or worse yet, that those dreams never see the light of day. Karen believes that when we empower working moms with these skills, they can raise kids who know how to balance work and life as adults, making a valuable contribution to a better world. Now, I call that harmony. So we call this episode Finding Work-Life Balance as a Working Mom. I want to introduce you to Karen right now. Hello, Karen.
Hi, thank you so much for that nice introduction.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We are delighted to have you.
I'm glad to be here.
So, in the intro, I mentioned that motherhood, marriage, chronic illness, divorce, and blended families contributed significantly to your story. So, would you unpack that a little bit for us and share your journey as a working mom?
Sure. Start off on the life side, so to speak. I am the mother of three children who are now all self-supporting adults trying to make their way in the adult world. Um, I love being a mom. It is my greatest achievement, I believe. However, it's not all of me. It's just a very important part of me, and everything I'm going to share today doesn't mean I have any regrets with the choices that I made as putting my family first. That was really, it's a major value of mine. So anyway, love my kids. Thankfully, they still love me and their stepdad, and we get to spend a lot of time together, and that feels like just a huge win and brings me a lot of joy. My marriage to their dad imploded after about 20 years, and overnight I became a single mom of two teens and a preteen, and most challenging thing I've ever gone through. I did make it through and to the other side, however, but not with developing or exacerbating a lot of health issues. Before um, my marriage ended, I did contract Lyme disease, and while it was no one's fault that the infected tick landed on me and made me sick, my life as a working mom, and then the just off the chart stress of being a single parent and divorce and all of that just made my medical journey a long one, 15 years to be honest, and it without a doubt impacted my life, my work, my kids, but from it gained a lot of valuable resources. For the past almost 9 years, I've been happily remarried to a partner who is a much better match for me. And certainly, while I'm not happy the divorce happened, on the other hand, I'm exceptionally grateful for my second husband. And then along with him came some stepchildren, and one of those stepsons has provided us with some grandchildren. So that's the blended family piece. And then the last piece, which kind of seems to be taking on more urgency, is caring for aging parents. And that is quite a challenge. And to be honest, at times I find it harder than raising teenagers. And I've had others that I've talked to agree with that. So that's another part of my life. But again, based in love, and wouldn't want to be there anywhere else. But it is challenging. So on the work side, I worked for about 30 years at a major university. Um, Reinvented myself there about 3 times, twice because my positions were eliminated, and then a third time because I chose to do something, go to a different department that I thought would let me have a greater impact. And then my most recent reinvention is entrepreneur. I am a solopreneur in my coaching business, as Maria noted, really committed to helping women design lives that they love with, greater health, happiness, and purpose.
I'm so glad you're here and that you do that because we need more of that. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. And I know that there are a lot of working moms out there. I talk to them all the time. Many of my clients are working moms, many of them single parents like you went
Mhm.
through. And some of them are going through a lot of what you went through with the remarriage and the blended families. And I'm a caregiver too for my husband, and aging parents. Been there, done that too. So there's so many transitions that we go
Mhm.
through in a lifetime. Some of them are expected and maybe welcomed, and some of them not so much. I
Mhm.
know that um, expectations can put a burden on us, both our own expectations of ourselves and the expectations that other people kind of put on us. So, how did expectations impact the choices you made?
So, like most of us who work in this work first culture, and also kind of subscribe to this perfect parent myth, I put tremendous pressure on myself to meet everybody's expectations: boss, husband, kids, parents, just everyone. And essentially, like, again, like so many women, I worked like I didn't parent, and parented like I didn't work. There's research out there that shows that working moms have the equivalent of 2.5 jobs, full-time jobs. And I think that just always put me kind of on my heels and scrambling to measure up in whatever role I was in at the moment. And as I noted, kind of almost denying the other important roles that I lived. And so, instead of important areas of my life overlapping, and working symbiotically with each other, they were separate. And I would say that they also came, many of my choices were based on fear of losing a job, fear of disrupting my marriage somehow because I wasn't doing what, my husband thought that I should be doing as a wife or as a mom. And so it trying to meet those external expectations really didn't give me a chance, or I didn't allow them to give me a chance to say, what is it that I want? Who am I? Who do I want to be? Who do I want to be 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road? And I was on autopilot, just trying to meet those expectations that I felt society had set. Internally, I'm a high achiever. Like I'm sure many of the women listening or watching this, and I wanted to do a good job in all of my roles all the time, which is impossible. But I was still a part of that effort to try to have it all and be the best at everything I did. And all that really did, because that's such a tall order, all I that created for me was a sense of guilt,
Mhm.
because I wasn't doing enough in my mind for all the different people in my life, including boss and coworkers. Um, but it also it just had me feeling like I wasn't measuring up, and there must be something about me that wasn't able to do all these different roles better. I would look around and see other working women, and it always seemed like they were doing a better job than I was. With hindsight and wisdom, I know that's not true. But even with what you see on social media today, the highlight reels of people's lives doesn't give you a good indication of what's really going on behind the scenes, so to speak. So I just, I spent a lot of time feeling guilty, overwhelmed, and like I wasn't measuring up.
Oh boy. Oh boy. That those are all things that I know a lot of women feel. I felt it myself. I the expectations that we put on ourselves are can be overwhelming, and they really can lead to uh, a point of uh, being our own worst enemy,
Mm-hmm.
right? I love how you said this, that you worked as though you didn't parent and parented as though you didn't work. You
Mm-hmm.
compartmentalized your
Yeah.
life,
Yep.
and never the twain shall meet.
Yeah.
And that is an expectation and a burden in and of itself,
Yes. Yes, it is.
because that's not how we're made,
No.
right? We're
No.
not made to do that.
Right. Right.
So when we first met, Karen, you talked about, I think you called it unknowing self sabotage.
Mhm.
What did that look like for you?
I think because I was so interested in meeting those expectations, the external ones, and then the ones I placed on myself as this, lifelong high achiever, uh, it unknowingly, unintentionally, I allowed all of those expectations to limit me, and to also um, make me feel like I didn't have any choices. And I think that, a lot of us feel that way, and we can, in fact, some people will swear by it, I just don't have a choice. But the fact is, there's always a choice. And for me personally, the only kind of non-negotiable thing I'd say is There, you're once a parent, always a parent. But anything else you decide in your life, a house, a college, a job, uh, whatever it is, location where you live, those things can always be changed. Doesn't mean it will be easy, but it can be done. And I limited myself because I was so focused on meeting all those expectations, meeting all of those needs of those different roles. Um, I most definitely was a people pleaser, and now kind of jokingly say, but not so much. I'm trying to be, I'm trying to recover from that. I'm trying to say more about what I need, what I want, what I can and cannot do. I've been thinking recently that because of those people pleasing tendencies, there's times where I overcommit and underdeliver. And that's not actually how I want to show up in the world. But I understand why I do that. Um, and so by setting those limits on myself, I think here's one example. It had me in the same position for almost 17 years. From a career standpoint, note to self, having the same supervisor for 17 years, not the best choice. It stunted my learning in some ways, good or bad. But I did that because I had figured out how to be a mom in that position. I also remember having a coworker who was maybe 10 years younger than I was when my kids were young. And she actually had like career goals. And I just remember one day thinking, oh, that's kind of an idea. But I didn't have a career development plan, or I didn't really set career goals, because anything I did, I first wanted to know that I could do it while also being the primary parent of kids who had the flexibility and the proximity to get to them if needed. And so I think it just really separated me from me, just from me as a person with a lot of potential that maybe was going untapped.
It's so interesting you say that. I have not been blessed with children of my own. I have lots of kids in my life, but they are, from my prolific brothers and now the next generation. So I didn't have to face that choice you did of having to figure out how to um, work as though you didn't parent and parent as though you didn't work. Um, However, the choices you made, I resonate with some of the choices you made for another reason, right? I was a people pleaser too, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to rock the boat
Yep.
in my marriage.
Yep. Yep.
So I held myself back
Yeah.
as well. That self-sabotage affected my career for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
the limitations that it put on me. So let me ask you about what unintended consequences came from the choices you made.
Sure. Well, so for my career, um, I think it held me back. It kind of, this is going to sound harsh, I'm really not trying to beat myself up, because I don't, women do that enough, and I don't want to encourage that, but I feel like I've underperformed in the work world based on the education that I've had, the skills that I have, all the resources that have been put into me, I've underperformed some. And, uh, I'm just about to turn 60 next month. It feels like a huge number. And I feel like I still have more untapped potential, but I'm feeling a different kind of clock ticking and don't feel like I have, I'm no longer 30, I'm no longer 40. My time to really tap into that potential is, I can kind of see the light at the end of that tunnel. And so I'm grappling with all of that. So that's career wise. I'm still struggling with how to be the best version of myself in the work world, and what does that look like? Unintended consequences for my kids. Because I was that people pleaser, because I spent so much time trying to make things easy for everyone else in my life, because I also I think of myself as a service oriented person as well, and it does make me happy to make other people happy. That is true. um, but I didn't involve my kids or ask for their help as much as I could have in caring for our home and our family. I think that I likely missed some teachable moments. And it's because of everything that I did for them. It's really possible that they had roommates who asked themselves, who the heck was this kid's mom? Because this kid doesn't know how to do anything. Or sometimes I think that maybe I will have some daughter-in-laws who might say, oh my gosh, again, uh, this man's mom did everything. And in fact, I hope that they choose partners that request and require more of them than I did, so that they will have a better partnership.
I,
Um,
it's so interesting
yeah.
about all of the choices we make when we look back, right? Reflect on
Hmm.
them. And we look at those unintended consequences and hopefully we learn from them, right? And
Yes.
hopefully, you can have this conversation with your kids
Yes.
about the
Yes.
unintended as adults, right?
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
about these unintended consequences so that they're aware.
Yes.
And, when they do partner up with someone and they expect more of them than was expected of them growing up, they won't be blindsided by it,
Right. Right.
right?
And they will, my kids will all look for capable partners, and they will also look for partners that likely want to work because they did see both of their parents working.
Yeah.
But that's another consequence. If we keep kind of work and home separate, kids don't get to see examples of healthy work-life integration. They also don't see how it has to shift based on the transitions that you mentioned earlier, some that are planned,
Yeah.
or those curveballs that come through illness, through lost jobs, through who knows what. And so we
Divorce.
help our kids by involving them more in that so that they can do a better job putting together their adult lives.
Right. Right. Because if we can raise them, even as they're older, right, inform them,
Hmm.
maybe is better, that a better way to have these conversations, right?
Definitely.
That then the likelihood of them being able to orchestrate what I call harmony. I don't particularly like the word balance, but
Hmm.
this harmony in their lives that allows it's the compartmentalization doesn't happen, right?
Right.
The twain
Right.
do meet in a harmonious
Right.
environment. So it's and it's on. I think it truly is on the moms to help them figure this out
Hmm.
when they do, right? When the moms figure it out. And this is
Yes.
a struggle a lot of my clients have right now.
Right.
It's,
Right.
how do I, and some of them are working from home. So it's that finding the
Mhm.
way to, set the boundaries,
Right.
right?
Right.
When they're working,
Right.
that
It's
they're working and that there's a boundary there, but they are available, right?
right. Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about the limitations that you've experienced. And did being a mom have to limit you?
No,
Okay.
it wasn't being a mom that limited me. Um, upon reflection, as I mentioned, I think I was limiting me. No, and of course, I mean, days were full and they just blended one into the other, and sometimes it felt like weekdays weren't different from weekends. I had 2 out of 3 kids playing travel sports. We socialized with other families. I mean, there was a lot going on. There is no question about it. There was meals to be prepared, homework to be supervised, a house to be cleaned, all of those kinds of things. Um, but as I said, I think I was living on autopilot from one thing to the next. Just going through the daily routine, the weekly routine, the seasonal routine, and I just couldn't even pause to like stop and ask myself, is this what I want? Is this healthy for me? Am I happy beyond telling myself that I'm happy making others happy? Um, and so I didn't feel like I had any choices. So, but they did exist, and I could have done some things differently. Or I could have, I love the words you use in your intro about bravery. It does take courage to rock the boat or to stop doing what all your friends and your family and society expects of you. But we have one life, and it's our life to design, to guide, to iterate, and to change as needed. um, that's our responsibility, and it's hard to hold that responsibility to ourselves when particularly we're caregiving for others and possibly guiding children. That is a tall order. But now that my kids are older, um, I see how much how much they're grateful for what I did for them. But that gratitude also, through their growth and maturity, has turned into wanting what's best for me and what's happy and healthy for me. And they would have been supportive earlier in their growing up years about being on board, kind of, for what made me my best self, just the way I was on board for doing things that made them their best selves. Um,
You alluded to something in that um, in that story about you could have done things differently.
mhm.
I'd love to know, and I think our listeners would benefit from knowing, hindsight being 2020 as it
Right.
is, what what might you have done differently if you could?
Right. Right. Um, I would have lived more intentionally. I would have,
What does that mean? What do you
yeah.
tell me what
So
that means?
that could be anything from, well, that means establishing a regular routine of checking in with myself to see, am I on track, and to start, even if that was annually. You choose beginning of the school year, beginning of a new year, setting some goals or some intentions, for myself, me. um, that could Another way to say that is, if goals, goals can be great, but goals are also, they can feel very heavy, particularly if we don't reach those goals. So even on an annual, on a quarterly, on a monthly basis, kind of saying, what does success look like for me personally, for me at work, for me as a mom, for me as a wife, as a friend, and just putting some benchmarks in place so that I'm not just going on autopilot from one thing to the next. I often was really pretty good about doing that for my kids, but I didn't do that for myself. I think also living intentionally, even on a weekly basis, would mean putting less emphasis on having a clean house,
Hmm.
asking the family to help with laundry. I mean, all of those little things, making room, for those regular routine activities that run a life and run a family, not holding my standards quite so high or asking for more help, because what that would have done is created space for me to focus on some things that really were about me and who I am, separate from the roles that were important to me in my life. So, you know, maybe starting a side hustle that focused on a passion, or developing a hobby that really lit me up, or if I were so inclined, sign up for a 5K and then a 10K maybe, or whatever it was. I put everybody else's goals and dreams ahead of mine, and it wasn't intentional about
And I
doing the
well,
same for
but it
myself.
was expected, right?
Yes,
So we
yes,
all were raised, in those of us of a certain age were raised, that that's what we did. You know,
right.
that's what women did.
Hmm.
There was uns, some of the times a spoken expectation, and other times an unspoken rule, if you will, that this is what's expected of you.
Right.
And I'm not sure how women got into this pickle of having to be all things to all people and not and nothing to herself.
Right. Well, I will say I have one idea, that popped into my head, but I also really believe this. I think women are just so capable.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
so
We are
really, we get it done.
right.
But
We
the
know that's
problem is we get it done to our own detriment. And we were
and that
talking
puts more
about,
expectations on us,
that's
doesn't it?
right. That's right. And we were talking about earlier some unintended
Yeah.
consequences of some of the choices I made. I risked the very thing that was most important to me, which was to be able to show up for my kids. By doing everything for everyone, I put my well being at risk. And I was just happened to be fortunate that I could still get out of bed every day and meet the minimum expectations. Um, but I get very afraid for women today. I see them giving everything they've got, and they're actually risking what matters most to them,
Yeah.
in addition to risking that disconnection with who they are at their core.
That's so important. I have said this for a long time now, and I think I have repeated this for so long that I finally believe it. And it took that kind of repetition for me to
Hmm.
believe it. And that is, when we women are not well at our best,
Yep.
we can't give our best to
Mm-mm.
everyone we care about or
Right.
everyone that expects our best.
Yep.
And if we only grew up knowing that that was the truth, then I think things would be different. And I hope that the young women today are taking that to heart
Hmm.
earlier than we did, right?
Yes. Yes.
Sooner in their lives than we did, so that they can live more intentionally, take better care of themselves, be
Yes.
at their best and give their best, and then, let the expectations be damned.
Right. Right. Well, or choose the expectations you want to try to
That
meet,
you That's right,
instead
right.
of just saying, well,
Setting those boundaries. Yeah,
right, I'll just
yeah,
show up for all of them.
right, right. And learning how to say no,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Learning how to say, no, I can't do that now.
Right.
I reserve the right to change my mind later when
Hmm.
I'm able to help you.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
The flip side of some of this, and again, thinking about the children many of us are raising, is that when we do that, not only are we modeling important skills,
yeah,
but we are attempting to give them permission to do the same thing as they need to in their adult lives.
that's
And
such a
I
good
think
point.
that's part of the how does it get better,
Yeah,
is to model things that give people permission to then say, I don't have to be everything to everyone all the time.
right. That's such a good point. Because we teach by our own behavior, right? By how we
Mhm.
treat ourselves,
Yep.
and our behavior, we can teach others how to treat us
Yes.
and how to treat themselves, giving themselves permission to model our behavior,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Completely
I
agree.
love that. I love that. Well, you alluded to the fact that you have reinvented yourself one more time as the coach to working moms.
Hmm.
So I am sure that you have learned lots of lessons. You've shared some of them with us. But at the end of every episode, I ask my guests to share the key takeaways, the tips that other people can hopefully take away and maybe implement in their own lives, and kind of give them a test drive.
Right.
So I would love to hear your tips. What's your
Sure.
first?
So my first one is to intentionally make your needs and wants and capabilities more visible, so that you don't get overlooked. And because I think that also by focusing on, and again, intentionally, that means making some choices, making some decisions, taking some time to reflect. Um, but by making yourself visible and communicating, you then are able to have, you're more in charge of your story about who you are and what you bring to, uh, your work, your family, other important relationships, and the world. And so instead of letting other people determine what they see in you, I encourage you to really think about what do you want to be visible for, and what do you need to do in order to make that happen. So a quick thing, particularly at work, is just to keep an ongoing list on your phone, on paper, and pencil, anywhere. Keep an ongoing list of your accomplishments so that you're not reliant upon a supervisor or a coworker to decide what you should be visible for. You decide what you want to be visible for. And when you have that list and when you have those intentions, that will help you also decide what can you say yes to and what should you say no to. Because we're going to let go of, I'll just do what everybody wants of me. We're going to say, no, this is what I want to be visible and known for. And here are the things I need to focus on in order for that to happen. So that's tip number one.
That it's it, that's such a great tip. Thank you for sharing that. Here's the thing that comes to my mind, and I bring it up because I hear it from a lot of my clients. It requires of us to decide that we intentionally want to be visible for something. It requires us to kind of change our own behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be seen by others, that change, as intrusive or different, or why is she doing that, why is all of a sudden things are changing, I don't like it. And I think about this mostly in families, right, when women
Mm-hmm.
are starting to
Mm-hmm.
come into themselves, set
Right.
boundaries that they never set before, and now people are resistant.
Yep. Yep.
So that it takes practice to do
Yes.
that, and it takes getting just kind of deciding in small doses, right? Taking
Yes.
small steps to test the waters for yourself. You got to feel comfortable with it, right?
That's right.
It will take you out of your comfort zone for sure,
But
and
that's where the growth is,
and
right?
that's where the growth is. It's a good thing, right?
Yes.
But to
Yes.
do it in small doses so that it
Right.
doesn't feel like this 180-degree turn all of a sudden
Right.
that people don't know what to do with.
Right. And when you make choices and make change, part of that change can include replacement in a different way of maybe what you changed or took away. So it doesn't mean you're just taking away. It may, for example, it may be, um, if you're working from home, you still get your kids set up from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock because you need to finish your work day. But then you're committed from 5 to 9 to doing the family time. And so it doesn't mean less. It can just mean different.
Right,
And
right,
um,
right.
and you can explain that.
And
And
getting
again,
others, getting everyone kind of involved in it, right? This is
yes,
what I'm thinking. So you have the conversation, and you
right,
ask for some input, some feedback. What if we tried this? What would
right.
happen? Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
And feedback is important too,
Feedback is
because
very
particularly
important.
while family or changes within a team at work,
Yeah,
you want win-win-win solutions.
right,
Um,
right,
and so yeah, feedback's very important, and
right.
just discussing it. How's it going? Check back in. Everything can be a pilot. It doesn't have to be a
That's
forever
right.
change.
Yeah, we're in beta test mode here.
That's right.
Right,
That's right.
right. All right. What's your second tip?
Second tip is, and this one has been so hard for me, but I have gotten better at it, so it's possible. But it's to ask for more help from your spouse or partner and your children. But in doing that, you also have to let go of some of your standards. So you just, again, we've said you can't do it all. I literally used to clean my house after the rest of my family was in bed. I mean, that's just one of the craziest things I've ever heard of, but I did it, and I did it for years. Now, with hindsight and some wisdom, I should have involved my family more. It may have meant that the house wasn't cleaned as well as I might have liked, but that's okay. I'm not doing it all and burning myself out. My husband would have been growing his skills, and my kids would have been learning as well.
Yeah.
So pick anything and just ask for some help. One of the things I learned to say was, "I've bitten off more than I can chew.
Yeah.
Can you please help me?"
Yeah.
Um,
And
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 that
that
goes
worked.
in any area of one's life, right?
Yes,
Because we often do bite off more than we could chew.
yes,
And
and
whether it's at work, and there's a deadline, and it's unreasonable, we can't do it, we need help to do it, or we need the deadline moved, we need to
yep,
ask for what we need, and
that's
that's
right,
something we just don't do often enough.
right.
And I agree with you. I've struggled with that as a people pleaser and a
Hmm.
perfectionist.
Yep.
I'm recovering in both places, I
Yes,
think.
yes. Me
But
too.
yeah, but it really means that we need to surround ourselves with people who understand what we're going through, and that we
Hmm.
can tap into them when we need it.
Right.
And having that conversation with those people, saying, I might tap into you at some point when
Hmm.
I'm like at wit's end, or
That's
I'm
right.
just burning out, or I bit off more than I could chew.
Right.
Please be there for me when I do,
Yep.
and get agreement that they will.
Right.
And
And
it's much easier.
right, right.
Okay.
And when you have times where maybe your load is a little less, this used to happen to me at work. Sometimes I just have these pockets where I had 15 minutes, I had 30 minutes I could give to a coworker.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, minimum, I could recognize and offer help. Is there
Yeah.
anything I can do to
Right.
help you with XYZ, this
Right.
project, this event, whatever? Um, and then other times, I could actually make room in my calendar to literally help them carry their load. That reciprocity was very, very important to developing trusting relationships at work that
Absolutely.
allowed that mix of work and life
Yeah.
when needed.
That's so important. We are running short on time. Do you have
Okay,
one third quick tip?
I do, which is just, and again, I'm a work in progress. Just um, value yourself more. Don't be so hard on yourself. Realize you're one in a million. I think I heard recently we're one in 400 million or
Yeah,
something.
we're all unique.
Right. The world needs you. You have very important gifts and talents, and summon up the power that you have inside of you. We all have it, to make those talents, those desires, those passions, let them shine.
Yeah,
Let them design a life you love that has greater health, greater happiness, greater purpose, because the world needs it.
indeed. It's a great one to end on. Value yourself more. Yeah. Karen, thank you so much. I know that there are going to be some people who are going to want to reach out to you. Would you tell us what the one best way that they can get in touch with you or connect with you and the work you do?
Sure. Going to my website is the best, which is rebalancewellbeing.com. You can get some free resources there, and also contact me.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much for being here. I know we could probably talk about this for a very long time. This idea of uh, balance and harmony. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it.
And for those of you who are watching and listening, I really appreciate that you're part of this community. And if you enjoyed this episode and you would like to see more, please subscribe, leave a comment, or click a star wherever you might be watching or listening. And as I said at the top of the show, I love creating resources for women. Plus, as a career and a life coach, I work with women to help them navigate challenging times more quickly and gracefully. So, if something in this episode resonates and you'd like a fresh perspective, reach out to us. Let's have a conversation. You'll find the links to connect with Karen in the show notes below. And I invite you to continue this conversation in my private Facebook group, the Career Transition Roadmap. So, again, the links for that are below as well. And let's meet again here next Wednesday, same time, same place. Because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. Till next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.